Okay, so as you can tell, I'm kind of broadcasting from home, but just the announcements for this week are fairly straightforward. The paper grades will be posted soon if they haven't been already, and always make sure and feel free to ask any questions about your paper grades. That's perfectly fine, but always check Turnitin first, because usually what happens is I post your grade to Turnitin, and then you can go and take a look at the comments. And just really quickly, a brief rundown. The purple comments are grammatical, and I usually don't really spend a lot of time on those unless they're pointing out things to me that are particularly egregious, like misspellings, lack of apostrophes, run-on sentences, that sort of stuff. But for the most part, I spend more time removing the purple comments rather than going by them as part of a grade. Now, grammar is a part of your overall grade, but usually I'm kind of going through and verifying the purple comments. People will make minor mistakes throughout the paper, and that's perfectly fine. I've always said that I'm going to hit you on the mistakes that will keep you from getting a job. And so that will be stuff like misspelling people's names, misspelling words, homonym, homophone confusion, lack of apostrophes, lowercase i's, chat speak, all those sorts of things will definitely hit you in terms of your grammar. For the most part, everyone's doing a pretty good job on your discussion board, but just kind of keep an eye out for that. And so along those lines, that's what the purple comments mean. The blue comments are things that I've posted that's feedback in some way, and most of the time I usually try to limit those comments to around 4 or 5 more generalized comments that are intended to assist you with the next paper in your cycle, and so kind of keep that in mind as well. The blue comments, I usually only do 4 or 5 just because research says that's as much as most people can process at any given point in time. And so take a look at those. And I remember, and I look back when I grade your next paper, about the comments I made on paper number 1 and so on. And so if I say, wow, your thesis was really not very good, I won't say it quite like that, but if I kind of basically say that, your thesis isn't really all that solid in paper number 1, when I get to paper number 2, if you still have a wishy-washy thesis, then you're losing more points, basically, in my estimation, because I basically asked you to fix it or pay attention to it or do a better job at it, and you didn't. If I see a lot of grammar issues and I say, wow, you really need to work on the grammar issues in here, then by paper number 2, if those grammar issues haven't been repaired, then you're going to start losing more and more points quickly. And so what has happened in the past is paper number 1, I've told a student to watch out for misspellings. Paper number 2, they haven't done it. Paper number 3, they haven't done it. By the time they get to paper number 4, I see one misspelling and you don't get any points for grammar. Okay? And so just kind of keep that in mind. You should always be improving what you're doing. That's kind of the whole process of this, and that's why you're doing 4 distinct papers. You should be improving what you're doing as you progress through. Some things will be automatically removed. So if you're formatting, it's just absolutely awful. And again, with Turnitin, don't copy and paste it into the box. Upload your doc file. But if it's not in Times New Roman 12-point font, if you haven't done parenthetical cites, if your works cited page is just messed up, then you're going to lose points really quickly. And then the amount of forgiveness you receive, I guess, for papers 2, 3, and 4 become a lot slimmer. Also, we are switching our unit now from education to journalism, and that's something a lot of students don't really think too much about, but it's kind of a big deal, especially as we're going into a presidential cycle. You're being told things in the media that may not necessarily be true, and we have a presidential candidate, or on the Republican side in particular, but for that, I guess you can argue on the Democratic side too, but we have a Republican candidate in particular who is very good at making sure he's driving clicks to the media, okay, by saying the more outrageous things, more over-the-top things that he can possibly say, and you probably know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to bother. And really what's happening is that the journalists are eating it up, not because they endorse the platform or anything, but because if they write about what he said, people will go and they'll view it, and that increases the money that they make. okay, on the journalistic side. And so kind of keep in mind this whole sort of megalithic, almost monolithic structure of journalism in the United States, in that we have corporations like Time Warner, etc., and they own these news outlets, and the news outlets are usually underneath an extreme amount of pressure to make money. It's very rare that news like the evening news that you see with whoever, Brian Williams or whatever, those are very rarely money makers, and so they're always constantly under pressure to at least be flat. Don't lose money for a network. But if you think about newspapers selling advertisements, blogs and other online things selling advertisements and clicks, all of those sorts of things. Okay, so as you think about journalism, there's a whole bunch of different topics that come out. Photojournalistic ethics, journalistic ethics, plagiarism, all of those sorts of things are fair game. And you're going to be doing an exemplification essay. And again, I encourage you, before you even start reading about journalism or thinking about your topics or whatever for this particular topic, go and read what you're going to be expected to be doing with your exemplification essay. Go and watch the presentation, which is either under assignments or course documents, and then she's sees another dog back there. But then make sure that you are approaching your readings with the idea of what are some examples, real world examples that are not abstract, that I can use to make my point. Okay, so that's basically the announcements. Again, if you have questions about your paper, feel free to ask, but check out Turnitin first, because after I posted everything, you can go back and view those comments. And a lot of times what students find is when they go back and they view those, like, oh, that's why, that I lost points on that. But if you take a look at those comments and you still don't know why, then email me so we can get this thing taken care of, or stop by my office. So that's the announcements for this week. As far as discussion boards go, you are doing a great job. You'll see in the next week or so, I'm going to start asking that you cite a source in each individual discussion board post, and that's just me keeping up with you, that you're doing your research as you progress through your paper, all of that stuff. So kind of keep an eye out for that as well. Otherwise, again, if you have any questions, feel free to email.